Question 10. Don says, in the last session, you mentioned that if the instrument used any of the increased vital energy that she experiences now for the physical activity, she would pay a harsh toll. Apologies for the unnecessary quote there. Should be a singular quote. Could you tell me the nature of that harsh toll and why it would be experienced? So, vital energy, using vital energy for the physical activity, harsh toll. What do you mean, Ra? Ra says the physical energy level is a measure of the amount of available energy of the body complex of a mind-body-spirit complex. The vital energy measurement is one which expresses the amount of energy of being of the mind-body-spirit complex. So let's get into context here. What are all these physical and vital energies? We've talked about them. Physical energy belongs to this physical manifestation. So our electromagnetic field even is included here because it's part of the physical radiation and it's measurable. So all of this is part of the physical energies. I strongly associate physical energy, at least the aspect of it, because it's not independent. It's all one thing. It's not like the positive and the negative are independent. You cannot find them independently from each other, right? They seek each other, and that's where they become one. So here we have the physical is it's the body. How do you take care of your body? This is why diet is important, exercise is important, having a flexible body is important. All of these things are necessary to have a very strong physical energy. You know, it's required for this reality. It's not that there is a standard and that everybody should be doing physical exercises and eating properly and so on. I don't wish at all to ever sound like I'm preaching somehow what should be. I'm just saying what it is. You know, physical energy is related to that. Some people actually don't care about their body, and I'm talking about even spiritual people who are very spiritual, you know, and they don't care for eating and to taking care of the body, and they're skinny, you know, and that's fine. So I'm not saying that it's a good or a bad thing. I think we're beyond that. I was actually told once by somebody, she doesn't understand non-duality, of course, although she attempts to view reality from the metaphysical lens, which is limited, of course, just like the physical scientific lens is limited. But she told me that in her fear, she expressed that non-dual people become skinny and that they neglect their bodies and so on. This is a stereotype that obviously doesn't apply. I mean, look at Aaron Abke, and if I can include myself there, both of us are actually pretty, we enjoy our bodies a lot, you know, physical training. And non-duality is our mana, you know, it's the nectar of our lives. So, you know, I just find it interesting how people stereotype. It's interesting the mental functions of and biases of the human. You see, because these biases, I can see it, you know, against, let's talk about black people or anybody who wasn't Roman, or, you know, these are stereotypes that are created and say, oh, you know, there's just anything. It could be race, it could be a language, it could be intellectual, it could be anything. But we tend to create a stereotype and say, oh, you know, you have to be aware of Spanish people because, I don't know, they like to eat too much. I don't know what the stereotype is for Spanish people. So yeah, we dance a lot. I don't know, but yeah, there's always a stereotype that doesn't understand the full scope of it. And yeah, thinking that physical energy, or if you're too obsessed with physical energy, which can happen, but if you're too much into your body, then you're a narcissist, because taking care of your body is just, if you feel called for it. Carla didn't feel called for it, and we'll talk about this. But that's the physical energy. It's a measure of the amount of available energy of the body complex, of a mind-body-spirit complex. So remember that there's a mind complex, a body complex, and a spirit complex. So thank God Rod didn't say this, but yeah, mind-body-spirit complex. And so the body complex of any entity, right? Us, that's the physical energy. The vital energy, on the other hand, is a measurement in the whole expression of the energy of being of the mind-body-spirit complex. So it's a summation, right, of the mind complex, the body complex, and the spirit complex. And I equate it to the desire to live, that passion to live, to wake up and just want to do things. Of course, the mind has a lot to do with this. Your spirit obviously energizes the whole thing. So it's a combination of all these three things, the vital energies that are available. I actually consider myself to be overly mental, in the sense of mental activity, so I know that I spend a lot there, but that's just me. So let's go on. Ra continues and says, this entity has great distortions in the direction of mind complex activity, spirit complex activity, and that great conduit to the creator, the will. Therefore, this instrument's vital energy, even in the absence of any physical reserve measurable, is quite substantial. So, more context here. Let's talk about Carla. Carla has great distortions in the direction. Let me clarify the word distortion here again, because I know it's sometimes misperceived as distorted, in the sense of something is perfect and then it gets distorted. It's wrong. No, the only perfection is infinity. Infinity gets distorted into finite portions of itself, right? The colors are distortions of pure light. There you go. So it's not a bad thing. It's just a distortion towards, I don't know. I don't have something. Whatever. My phone case has a distortion towards blueness. See, that's a distortion. It neglects other colors to reflect blue, or it absorbs other colors and reflects blue. How about that? So Carla had great distortions in the direction of mind complex activity, so a preference towards complex activity, mind activity and spirit activity, and the will, a lot of the will, which is the great conduit to the creator. Yes, you only channel the creator when your will is directed towards something. So you're always channeling the creator, but where is your will directed? That's a good question. We all have it directed towards different things, and thank God for that. Thank the creator for that. Therefore, this instrument's vital energy, even in the absence of any physical reserve measurable, is quite substantial, because yes, she had a strong mental and spiritual activity towards the creator, towards life, towards everything. And so you can see here how vital energies can be very strong even in the absence of physical energy. This is quite appropriate for the stereotype, according to my friend, who believes that all yogis and non-dual people are distorted towards low physical energies and so on. But yeah, the yogi is very that yogi. It's not all yogis, of course. That yogi, that stereotypical yogi, apparently, according to my friend, that has very little physical energies. Well, that's possible, but it has a very strong vital energy towards living because it appreciates life from its mind and spiritual complexes. Let's continue on. Don finishes, Ra finishes, not Don. Says, however, the use of this energy of will, mind, and spirit for the things of the physical complex causes a far greater distortion in the lessening of the vital energy than would the use of this energy for those things which are in the deepest desire and will of the mind, body, spirit complex. In this entity, these desires are for service to the Creator. This entity sees all service as service to the Creator. And this is why we have cautioned the support group and the instrument itself in this regard. All services are not equal in the depth of distortion. The overuse of this vital energy is, to be literal, the rapid removal of life force. Interesting. All right, several things. This is answering Don's question specifically when they say that the use of this energy, will, mind, and spirit, which Carla had in great proportions. Now, all of this use for the physical complex causes a far greater distortion in the lessening of the vital energy. It's like, using your mind alone to, this is probably a very crude example, but let me go to the physical because this is where they're going here. I will lift or run or any lift or run, lift weights, run with my mind alone. I'm just going to use my mind alone for doing all of this. If you're distorted towards that, then you will find that it's going to be very draining in your body. You have to take care of your body. You can't use your mind or your will or your spirit, for that matter, to become stronger, say. Or I'm going to use my body, just to use another example. I'm going to do yoga. This is probably a very appropriate example here. I'm going to do yoga to become very spiritual. You know, that yoga that is taught in the Western world, in which Krishnamurti, Jiddu Krishnamurti, one of my favorite philosophers, I love that man, used to say, you should call this yoga. He was an Hindu, of course, an Indian actually, he wasn't Hindu. He said, we should just call it exercise, physical exercise. Has nothing to do with yoga. He was very emphatic when he talked about these things. You can see it in his expression. So yeah, doing yoga, I'm very spiritual. I've heard people say this, it's like, oh, I'm a yogi. I'm like, oh yeah, what do you do? I do yoga exercises. I'm like, okay. Well, I guess that's being a yogi in the Western sense. It's being, very mindful of your movements. You can't do that. That won't make you any more spiritual. You see? So, yeah, it'll greatly distort people too, saying I'm a yogi because I'm very mindful of my movement. I'm very spiritual. All right, even that is saying too much. I'm very spiritual. Nobody who says it's spiritual is spiritual or knows anything about spiritual. The Brahman is unknown to those who know it and known to those who know it not. Right? That's exactly fitting here. So, you cannot use, you can, but you will incur great distortion. That's why they caution Carla not to overuse this for her physical energies. So this entity, these desires. Oh, and they also say that it'll cause a greater distortion and lessen the vital energy than it would to use these energies towards the deepest desires and will of the mind, body, spirit complex. Meaning that not for the physical, but if you use it for its proper use of your desires, what you want, of course, that's fitting for the mind and the spirit, then it would be helpful. I forget what the English is. I won't even go to that. This entity sees all service as service to the Creator. Okay, that's true. That was Carla's direction of will and what she wanted to do. And this is why we have cautioned the support group and the instrument itself in this regard. All services are not equal in the depth of distortion. It's an interesting phrase. All services are not equal in depth of distortion. So they're not equal in depth of distortion. So in preference, if your preference is on one direction, then your service is going to be equal to that intensity, but it won't be, it's difficult to explain. Yeah, the depth of the distortion or preference obviously is a predilection of the person, right? So that depth of distortion is not the same in different desires. So for example, going to this example, the desire for Carla to have a strong body did not correlate with her desire to take care of her body. You see? So there is it's not equal. It doesn't matter how much you desire your service, to go towards having a strong body. If it doesn't match your innate desire to be strong, then it's not equal. You see? These services are not equal in the depth of distortion. There is a lack. It's in Carla, it was kind of shallow, her desire to have a strong body. And this is really, an inner thing. You have to find, how is it that you want to have a strong body? I am of the belief that Carla could have had a stronger body, but she didn't, and that's okay, just like anybody could. But, that made her what she is, and that's perfectly fine. But it is to try to become something that you're not that makes you kind of distorted in a lessening of vital energy. I hope that makes sense. The overuse of this vital energy is, to be literal, the rapid removal of life force. Yeah, that's perfect. You see, the overuse of this vital energy. So whatever you desire to do, in this case, Carla wanted to be of service, of pure service to the Creator in the spiritual sense, to use that overuse that for the body can be a rapid removal of the life force, because it's going against her own innate preferences of what the body should be. And in fact, if you read Carla's, or about Carla's life, you notice that she actually became much more in harmony with her body. She had a very crippled body. Fingers, walking. It's amazing what she did for, how long? 70 something years, I think. And all of this with a very limited body. So, you come in harmony with that. I guarantee you that her vital energies were pretty much balanced. So, let's move on.